a massive warm welcome to everybody and lots of appreciation for turning up, because that's part of what we do here at Together Culture. Hi to everyone in the room and online as well. So you are going to be in Ellie's capable hands for the first part of this evening. She'll be keeping an eye on the online fervouri, no doubt, and feeding into the conversations here with comments. So many of you won't recognise me. So my name's Susanna, and I'm a member of the community development team, which is part of the governance structure here at Together Culture. And we put ourselves forward to host this evening, to get to know you all and to represent ourselves so that you know who we are, to establish our role a bit more. So, what are we actually hosting here this evening? So this is not your typical pizza hangout, but rather it's both that and an opportunity to really channel the momentum from the Citizen Studio work that many of you will have been involved in earlier this year, by feeding back about it, planting some seeds so that we can all think together about how to take it forward. And in so doing, it's everybody here's opportunity to get involved in the strategy of Together Culture and to harness the power of all of us working together. And just a little side note, thank you to everybody who did turn up for the Citizen Studios and collaborate all together, which is part of the spirit of what this evening is about as well. And you're all here for a reason, right? You knew a bit of this anyway, because none of this is new. So this goes back to the theory of change that we've got on the wall there. It's about finding ways to put the findings of the Citizen Studio into practice through the Business Unusual Accelerator that takes place over the summer and the months to come, but also in other ways as well. Basically, whatever we can find and concoct and co-create from working all together and firing off each other. And there will be a few different ideas about structures and processes of how to do that tonight. But also, yeah, let's see what happens, shall we? And tonight is really an invitation to start working on that. Part of how this isn't new as well is because of all that has gone before, not just the theory of change, but what it has brought about. Like, for example, the Kite Heritage Project and the Department's sort of regeneration concept. And also the not insignificant fact, I don't think, of 17 members of Together Culture accessing paid work through Together Culture this year. So we have got plenty to build on there, I think. And yeah, let's see how we can take this forward. So I will set out a little plan for this evening. So I'm handing over to Heather and Ruchit, and from there they're going to be talking about community and citizenship, what it means to be in citizenship with each other, and then we'll be introducing a bit about how the Citizen Studio data was organised. Mark will be feeding back about the findings. Heather will say some bits and pieces about where that might take us. Hayley and Ellie as well, talking about the share bank, and then Elle to kind of summing things up at the end around those plans for how we're going to take tonight's bright ideas forward. So I will hand over now.
So, before we jumped into the big reveal about the Citizen Studio, we thought that it could be worthwhile to just pause for a second and to just check what it is we're talking about when we talk about citizenship. Because it's a really hot topic, and a lot of people have different ideas in their head about what it means to be a citizen today, what it could mean to be a citizen, what it means to be an inactive citizen, what it looks like and feels like to be an active citizen. It's almost a year ago to the day that we gathered, and the guy that wrote this book, John Alexander, the book is Citizens, came to talk to us with Mike Davey, who at the time was the leader of the council, and he is no more. So things do change. But does anybody remember this chat? Who was in the room? Some of you were definitely in the room this John Alexander night. Yeah. And here is testing your memory. One of the things we talked about was the etymology of the word citizen. Does anybody remember effectively what its meaning is in Latin? Together people. Together people, which I think is absolutely lovely. And I mean, of course, what we did was come together in our Citizen Studio to think about what our priorities are. And then the idea is we then figure out what we want to do with it, how we put it into practice. And the thing that John was challenging us to do was to think of citizening as a verb, an active thing. So I thought it would be worthwhile for us to just get refreshed, or at least in this space 1 year later, having done more work as Together Culture, what does active citizening mean to us? And so I invited Rashid to come along and to join us, who many of you will know from the Cambridge Room, but he's going to talk to you about his backstory tonight, and then we're going to have a bit of a conversation about pulling together a job description for being a citizen. How does that sound? Are you up for that? Yep. Okay, great, fantastic. So Rashid, I'm not going to introduce you because you're far better at telling your story. Could you tell us not just your story, but your citizen story? What does it mean to be a citizen to you, and have you been putting that into practice?
Yes. I've got, thank you everyone. Thanks Heather for inviting me. I was having this conversation with myself for the last 2 weeks since we discussed this conversation, because I was like, what exactly can I speak in 10 minutes in terms of what story or what citizen story is? So just to kind of give you a very quick background of who am I, where I am from. So I studied architecture back home in Mumbai. That's where I come from, 18 years ago. And then I came here to do my master's and PhD, and I continued studying. And I had left architecture to become an academic. And during that process as well, my father was like, are you not going to build buildings? And I said, no, but research is into buildings. But he's like, but you're doing community work. Because during the course of my 5 years of architecture in Mumbai, I was very much involved in social sciences and going and working in the slums of Mumbai, so which are the informal settlements, and trying to understand what level of housing is actually needed in Mumbai. So my master's, which I did following, which was at the Development Planning Unit in London, was about disaster risk reduction, participatory planning in slum regeneration. How do you provide housing for the informal? How do you actually provide housing to communities which do not are not on the list of the governments? So that's always been a passion for me, and that led to me doing this PhD, which was again related to heritage, but trying to understand what is heritage for an individual, what is heritage for a community, what are the kind of stories which similar to the kite heritage story, which are heard but also not heard, and how do you bring to fore what is the intangible aspect of heritage. And as I was developing this, there was this constant, I didn't choose this entire career as I'm speaking of my 20 years in that direction. There was always this kind of pull and push towards, am I going in a direction where my father would have wanted me to go? Because he kept on asking, saying, because he studied accountant, so he always asked me to go into that direction. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And he's like, study something else. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And when I didn't study architecture to make these Zaha Hadid style buildings, and he's like, really, you're not going to do this? And I'm like, no, I want to actually work for the community and bring about a change which I can actually see in a bit more holistic way. And I'm not to say that architects don't do a good job. They do what they're doing. But I always felt something more passionate and missing out of it, which led to me when I was doing my first postdoctoral, and I was like, this is not something I'm really passionate about. I was working with communities, but not actually bringing change. And that led to me working on this project called Everyone Every Day at Participatory City Foundation. And that's where...
Participatory City Foundation.
Yes.
And where was that?
This was in Barking in Dagenham. Okay. And what you see, the pie chart on your tables, is from one of the research reports which written. But what we were trying to develop over there was an ecosystem of multiple opportunities for people to actually participate in their environment. And create this kind of support platform, which right now Together Culture is doing for people to see, okay, where is it? How do I meet like-minded people? How do I participate? And so this was just kind of our visioning exercise of trying to see what is it, and that as an individual, do I participate in the society? Mm-hmm. How do you question yourself, saying, people participate in different ways, also depending on which city or country you're living in. What kind of models of participation are open or accessible to general public? You know, there's this ladder of participation. Where are you trying
buy
to
things in stores because
exactly
that's participating in some way.
Exactly.
You can turn up and vote.
Yes.
And in a way, that's kind of low-level participation, right? Yeah. It's reactive and responsive participation.
Exactly.
What are some of the more engaged types of?
For example, there is something which you think is not correct happening in the society, and then you go out and you form groups and you decide, I'm going to protest. That is one way of doing it. But things are going the way it is, but you realize there are small changes which I can make to the community. And for example, just like 5 minutes ago, I was talking to beautiful Yvonne, and she was mentioning about this garden she was making. That is real small change. That is a citizen story, which we were trying to collect.
Got it.
So my story was like, how do I go away from my career, but not go, but kind of thing. How it kind of, these kind of projects, they drawn towards me, kind of saying, okay, I need to go and actually do work which can, or use my skills. I had learned to collect data and analyze and evaluate. And I was like, I could go and work for a private firm, or I could go and work for an NGO and utilize that to actually show impact. Because eventually, after every year, the funders of that particular NGO would ask them, saying, what is your impact story? And to collect those impact was to do these kind of things. I've got some books, and I'll send Heather links, which you can see there are some really nice citizen stories, which you can see of how people participating at different levels, from either starting a composting club or starting how to make a curry club, those kind of different projects that initiated, and how they kind of evolved during the journey of those 5 years kind of thing.
That's really interesting. So can I attempt to summarize?
Yes.
So thank you for sharing your story. And what I think story is the operative word there, because what I was hearing is your life was a journey and you were figuring out your own story. So you approached architecture from what you knew on the outside before you started studying it, and then started thinking, community and citizenship has this whole architecture that's kind of invisible. And that's the part that I'm really interested in. How do we build those frameworks to help enable people to get active and make a meaningful contribution to their community? And then it sounds like in Participatory City, you did a whole bunch of work getting out there to understand people's kind of catalyst stories. So what's the starting point? What's the entry point? And then how do we build on that? So if somebody's interested in gardening, and they get really interested in gardening, and they start building a garden to get other people involved in gardening, terrific. But then if we collect all of those things, how do we create a framework that's building a new narrative, a new culture, that has a heritage legacy for how citizenship is practiced in this place? It's the architecture of citizening. Yeah?
Exactly.
Boom. Boom. That's what we're doing here. So I think before we jump into a group exercise, we had this idea. We were sitting having coffee, and we were saying, in an employment context, if you were going for a job, you would have a job description, right? You would have a clear sense of what was being asked of you. You would have a sense of the attitudes, the aptitudes, the talents you might have, skills that you don't have now, but skills that you could develop. You'd have a sense as a prospective employee looking at an employer, what's available to me? Like what kind of training opportunities, what can I get out of this? How can I develop and grow as a person, right? Something about educational background or life experience background that's relevant. And all of that stuff would kind of be spec'd, right? Anybody ever have a job that has not had a job description? And even, there are lots of other things that we do in our life, like be a parent, or be a partner, be a husband or a wife. And actually these things are kind of contracted too. There are certain expectations, even if they're social contracts, right? And to make those relationships work, you know, there's a lot of work that you do with another human being to try to, even if it isn't as formal as a job description. There's some structure, there's some framework there. So we were thinking, how come we don't have a sense of this for what it means to be an active citizen? Why don't we write this down and evolve this so that people know what they're getting into? What would you put on a job description for a citizen?
From my story, it's all about giving.
Yeah.
How everything I'm doing, how do I give it back?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from the love for yourself, your community, your family, basically, and depends on how you define the family. Is it immediate neighbors? Is it the entire street you're living on? Is it the wider neighborhood or the city? But then the love for that. So every work or every minute project that you do, how much time and resources are you able to give? Yep. And because eventually, how do we define the jobs in the today's world? Is about 9 to 5 or depending hourly jobs, these many tasks, and then you are counting. So the projects which we worked on, from participatory city or to the Cambridge Room, it survives, and Together Culture survives on the volunteers who work for us. And you know, the word volunteer, but it's people who feel like the love and they want to give it to every small thing. It could be the sewing club they're going to, or the composting club they're going to.
I think it's a great addition. Yeah. And my yes and to that is the commitment and the ability to be able to give to others comes from a reciprocity as well. And what's the framework that can hold you in a place where you're cared for so that you can care for other people, and you can develop those emotional resilience skills and be able to share them with others.
Exactly. And as I said, the love, and the family doesn't stop at one point, right? What about the love for the planet?
Right.
Yes, so it has to grow, and that, for me, that is what a citizen means. Am I a citizen of Cambridge? Am I a citizen of Earth?
Well, yeah. I mean, Theresa May told me that I'm not allowed to think that way, and told all of us, but I absolutely believe in being a universal citizen, but apparently it doesn't exist. Say some. So Ruchit got us started. The idea that we have now on your table, you see a piece of paper, and Mark will have shared a similar form with everybody in the online world. And it just says job description, active citizen. The United Kingdom is recruiting citizens of all ages to proactively help nurture our ecosystems, our communities, and one another so we can all lead fulfilling lives. Along the way, we hope to shape a more inclusive and ecological economy, too, to make sure we're building and sharing community wealth. So this is not going to be an exhaustive exercise. What I was going to do is give you 5 minutes to turn and chat to your neighbors. There are some pens on the table. And I was going to ask there are lots of different sections on the job description. There are hours per week that are committed. There are people that you work closely with. There's remuneration. There are key responsibilities. There's attitude and outlook, education and experience, knowledge and skills, and on-the-job training. Now, there's no way you're going to get through all of this in 5 minutes, or maybe you are, and it's all in your head. But gravitate with your group towards something that feels meaningful, and then we'll have a quick chat to see what a citizen job description might begin to look like for us. Introduce yourself to your neighbors as well as you go. So great to hear so much murmuring, and I hope it's the beginning of a conversation, because there's plenty of time for pizza and to carry on chat, and this might be something that we're going to be running workshops on to elaborate on. This might just be a prototype idea. Anybody want to share any ideas that bubbled up? Thanks, Sarah.
We like not in order. Okay, I'm going to
Great,
straight
go for it.
into education. We felt there's no qualification needed, but maybe some kind of citizenship toolkit
Yep.
would be a really useful course for everyone to do.
Yeah.
We went for the attitudes.
Yeah, what'd you get? Red Eye Money?
Well, we hit it straight to the big one, but then we had to spread that. We said love
Love.
or compassion.
Yep.
We, very much really impressed that you brought that into your presentation. And then we thought, well, maybe love needs some accountancy as well.
Okay.
And business minds amongst the love attitude.
Okay.
So collaboration between the two types.
Love it.
We talked as well about similar kind of thing of like what the value of love and belonging, and also thought though that for some people for whom money is really important, like it means that they can or can't give time because otherwise they'd have to do something else. Maybe there was something around exchanging things of value. We were kind of trying to sidestep the actual cash bit,
Right.
aware that was something that they would need to pay for themselves, that maybe it could be exchanged in some way that would mean that you wouldn't exclude people who weren't well enough off just to give time.
Quite, because there are barriers. A lot of people want to do this stuff. What are some of those barriers and how do we break them down? And money is clearly one of them. Even if it's just the need to be doing other things with money as opposed to stuff they'd really like to be doing. Yeah?
Remuneration, I put, I put near the remuneration bit, to provide plenty of optional courses and caring for each other.
I love that. Yeah. So I love the blend of learning and caring. It just keeps coming up over and over and over again. I think that lays a really good framework for moving into talking about what came out of our Citizen Studio. So I think everybody knows, and everybody in this room and everybody on this screen knows, that what we're really trying to do with Together Culture, and definitely what emerged from Citizen Studio last year, is how do we create basically a framework for people to actively citizen, right? To care, to share, to learn, to work, and to gather. Those are the different departments that we've developed together for Together Culture. So let's have a talk about what came out of Citizen Studio this year that pushes that framework further. Because of course what we're really trying to do is to be catalytic leaders. Because if we can do it here and scale it, how can we take that beyond what happens at Together Culture? Because just like Rashit was saying, there are people out there researching this stuff, and you need case studies galore, don't you? To be able to say that it works, so that people will take it further and believe in it, right? Could we say thank you so much to Rashit for sharing his story? Thanks, Rashit. Yeah, no, it's great. It's always good to see you. So now it's Citizen Studio's reveal time, and dun 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 dun. Who does a good drum roll? Anybody? Love it, love it. I'm going to share my screen, and it's over to Mark. So we're going to tune in to Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Awesome, yeah, thanks everybody. So this is where we share what came out of Citizen Studio. So you want to go to the next slide, Heather. I think we're gonna take about 20-25 minutes to go through this in the course of this evening. And I'm gonna cover what we did and why and what we heard. So what was the process for the Citizen Studio this year, just as a reminder, and then what were some of the outcomes and what we heard in the data that was collected. So if you participated in Citizen Studio this year, thank you. And in case you didn't know, if you may have said it during the course of the session, but in case you missed that, we collected everything that was shared and we did some analysis. So that's what we'll talk about and what we heard, and then I'll hand it over to Heather, who's gonna talk about where are the territories that we, for development that we saw in that data, what do we wanna work on based on what we heard from all of you who participated. And then she's gonna also talk about the business unusual accelerators process that's gonna get kicked off shortly over the course of the summer. We won't be going through all of the data analysis that we did of the data that was collected, but do know that we'll share this deck, and in the appendix of this deck is much more kind of in-depth, some piece by piece analysis of the data that we collected. Yeah. Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, the question that we were working on in Citizen Studio this year was, in 10 years' time, if the Together Culture community enabled each member to do meaningful work which supported their personal well-being and that of the community as a whole, how would we have accomplished that? And again, as a reminder, the way we came up with that question was we ran a survey at the very beginning of this year to collect from members what different areas were that they thought Citizen Studio should focus on. And meaningful work and well-being were the two big areas that came out of that survey, and this is the focus question that we landed on for Citizen Studio. And again, as a reminder, a lot of reminders in this first portion. Citizen Studio is a big part of our theory of change, which we've already talked about tonight. And it is the part where we come together as a community to make that change that we want to see in the community as a whole, within our own community, within the Together Culture community, but also within the communities that Together Culture resides in. And the process that we went through in Citizen Studio this year, on the next slide, just again, for those of you who didn't participate, but for the folks who did, we spent about 90 minutes in each session. We spent about 13 minutes kind of setting the scene in terms of talking about what do we mean when we talk about meaningful work. We did an empathy mapping exercise, which involves thinking, walking in the shoes of our fellow citizens, fellow community members, thinking about what meaningful work might mean for them and how we may enable that meaningful work better. And then the core of the session was a brainstorming exercise that we call How Might We, and we'll be really heard that phrase How Might We tonight, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit for those of you who were active in the session. And then the last short little exercise was a kind of a fill the blanks exercise where we asked participants to envision the future where this future where meaningful work and well-being were being enabled by Together Culture and Together Culture membership. So what little kind of few numbers on Citizen Studio this year. So we ran 12 sessions. Those were conducted by 6 newly trained and paid facilitators. So we had a facilitation training program at the beginning of the year, and a shout out to our facilitators this year, Elle, Ava, Ren, Will, Lucy, and Jeremy, who all did an amazing job of facilitating the sessions. As you know, if you participate, if you were one of the 50 or so members who participated in the sessions in person or online, and that was another new development this year. We ran about 5, I think, maybe more sessions online, which worked really well. And those were all participants who were recruited from Together Culture membership. And then over the course of those 12 sessions, we generated around 375 distinct ideas that mapped out into 6 different themes, which we will talk about in the next section. So that's what we did and why, and then what did we hear? So the first piece, for those of you who participated in the session, if you recall, the very first thing we did was we asked you, what does meaningful work look like to you? When you've done meaningful work in the past, what did it What did it feel like? And what, most of all, made it meaningful to you? And based on those answers, we have this picture that's forming of what meaningful work means to Together Culture members. And the things that are really apparent in those answers that people gave were that work that's meaningful has a clear purpose. It's something that is helping other people. It's something that you do collaboratively, and something that aligns with your values as a person. The things that you value most is coming through in that work. It's something you're choosing to do. It's more meaningful if it's a choice, and it also helps you enable you to see yourself in the doing of it. Those were some things that were really apparent in those answers, and we felt like also implied in those answers were a couple other qualities of work that is meaningful. That it is accomplishing something hard. The work that you all talked about was something that's a challenge. It's something that needs to be figured out. It may be something that is creating something new, whether that's a new way of doing a job, a new service, a new product that you're providing, a new way of helping people. It requires people in that collaborative work to come together as a team and have a shared challenge that they're working on. It's something that takes time. It's not something that you can just sort of show up and do and put down at 5 p.m. and then head home and forget about it. It's something that's gonna require a good time commitment and something that is the outcome of it will be better if you persevere. That's something that's gonna be challenging enough that it's gonna incentivize perseverance. So that became a really rich picture of what meaningful work looks like as we moved into brainstorming ideas. And the themes that came out of the brainstorming were these. So there were 6 distinct themes that we came up with in our How Might We brainstorming. And just as a reminder, How Might We it's a brainstorming method where we brainstorm ideas around a specific focused question. And we had a set of a few 4 or 5 questions that we had people brainstorm against. They could pick one and then generate ideas. And the themes that came up really fell into 2 kind of broader categories. There was 3 themes that were a little more focused on work related, and 3 themes that were a little bit more focused on well-being related. So the work related ones were mentorship and networking. So some of the ideas that were part of mentorship and networking that were shared were things like a speed mentoring program, getting access to other mentors who can help people generate skills, develop skills, networkings aimed at people who maybe are mid-career, things of that nature. There was another theme around creating work opportunities, so whether those are paid or unpaid, but different ideas around how do we actually get people doing work that can be meaningful. So whether it's flexible or part-time work, something with paid, something with volunteer, creating creative jobs for members, creating paid freelancer projects for people, so things like that. And then the third work-related theme was skills sharing and training. So there came things like weekly meet and skills workshop, hackathons, job hunting workshops. The idea generally was member-led skills training and skills sharing activities. And then the 3 well-being related themes were, one was just general health and well-being support, and a lot of those fell into mental health and well-being. And so things like mental health support groups, normalizing talking about mental health, access to therapy, access to well-being support. The second theme was cultural exchange and integration. So different ideas related to exchanging cultural experiences with people who are maybe newer to the community and vice versa, having opportunities for those people who are new to the community to share their culture with the community. And then events and connection was the third area related to well-being. So this was really anything and everything related to putting on events within and for the Together Culture community, a lot of things related to music performance. So music listening nights, opportunities for sharing musicianship, people who perform music, perform in other ways, communal spaces for musicians to connect. The two areas, and you'll see the numbers on here for votes, the two areas of the two peaks that got the most votes, because we did dot voting as a part of the brainstorming exercise, were the mentorship and networking and the events and connection. So those were within these 6 themes that came out, those were the two that we think we want to focus on the most going forward and bringing forward coming out of this. But all of these are rich areas of development for us to think about as we move into the next phase. And then we think the really good news based on all those ideas is that there's a lot of what Together Culture is doing already that we can build on, that falls really squarely into these themes. And so we have a really strong perspective and kind of suspicion that members want to build on a lot of what we're doing already. And so we think that's a really great opportunity. So for example, when it comes to mentorship and networking, there's already the Fresh Start Fridays program that is happening as a part of the Department of Sharing, as well as the Share Bank program that I think we'll be hearing more about later tonight. And then as it relates to events and connection, the Breaking Bread, like we're doing tonight, the Connections Cafe, Wheel of the Year, there's a lot of activities that are already happening in those areas as well. And all the things you see on the slide are all current or planned activities that Together Culture is doing. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to participate in things that are already happening and to pick up and kind of run with a lot of these activities to build on them. So that's really great news. And then kind of further reinforcing that is when we look at the data that came out of that very last exercise, so that fill the blank vision setting exercise in the Citizen Studio sessions, a lot of the things that came out of that seem to be really building on the things that we think people are valuing about Together Culture today. So we asked specifically in that exercise for members, what, in 10 years time, what would we think members will be seeking from Together Culture, and how will they be seeing Together Culture as their best option for this meaningful work that promotes well-being? These are the things that came out of that specific answer. So creating opportunities for connection and networking, for skills development, a place where a supportive community that promotes growth and support and work and protection, and then a platform for sharing and creating work and sharing skills, creating new work together. So again, we see this as very reinforcing of the direction that Together Culture is already moving in, which gives us a lot of, we think, foundation to stand on in terms of expanding the things that we're already doing, as well as endeavoring to take on new enterprises that we hope to do related to meaningful work and well-being in the coming months to storm. So with that, I will pass it over to Heather, who will talk more about that specifically.
Hello, I'm Elle, for those online, and I was just going to say that I'm part of the community development team, and Susanna already introduced herself earlier, and Rachel, who's online, and then there are others of us in the room, but Rachel and I have both had experience in qualitative research, so we looked at the data as well. We each sort of looked at it separately and did our own analysis, and then we had Mark present it to us, or we didn't have him, like he presented it to us. And then Heather shared her thoughts and Mark shared his thoughts. We shared our thoughts and kind of gave some input and validated what had been found. So we just thought it would be useful for you to know that it had input from different people and people who do that as well in their career. So that's all, yeah.
But in terms of figuring out what we're going to do next, I just wanted to, this is all stuff that you will have seen at the State of Together Culture and that you've got access to. But effectively, Together Culture strategy is working on three different levels. So first and foremost, it's bringing a community together. That's us. In our second year of developing Citizen Studio, which is amazing, right? A lot of you have been members for 2 years and you've done this twice. That's so cool. And effectively going through this process of being active citizens and shaping what Together Culture does next against all of those priorities is creating that framework, being the catalysts that make bigger change happen, all the stuff Rushit was talking about to begin with, right? Then we are developing a culture, but then how do we take this culture of caring, sharing, learning together, working together in a meaningful way beyond just the confines of Together Culture? And that's the placemaking work that Together Culture is doing. So you'll have heard a lot about what's now being called Barnwell Community Power and the work that we're doing with Abbey People and with ARU to be able to expand the work that we're doing across Barnwell and expand starting with the Heritage Project and looking to take not just the Kite Heritage Project, but bringing it to all of Barnwell, right? And working on narrative expansion and enterprise expansion in that way. And then action. Obviously, action is embedded in each separate step of the process, but it's also about the framework that we're developing, the processes that we're developing. Those are all things that we could also call knowledge assets. It's not a term that I like, but it's a term that exists and it helps us to understand how we're learning how to do stuff and we're figuring out how to do it well to create meaningful change for people and to enable active citizenship to happen. So once we figured out how to do that in Cambridge and do it well, we can pick it up, we can adapt it, and we can take it other places to help other communities do exactly the same thing. So community at Together Culture, placemaking and broadening the culture of creative citizenship or active citizenship throughout Cambridge, and then with the systems and the processes that we develop, how do we take that beyond Cambridge? Come the criteria that we're using in terms of processing the Citizen Studio data to then shape into what are we going to do. So I know some of this is hard to read, but we'll send it to everybody tomorrow morning. With some of it are departmental expansion priorities. That's what was clear. So it isn't a new thing, but it's kind of expanding and deepening the work that we're doing already. That was really clear in what you were creating in Citizen Studio. So enhancing the Department of Sharing by encouraging more members to deliver cultural sharing initiatives, right? All members can develop and deliver their own programs. And a director of the Department of Sharing and a manager of the Department of Sharing exist. It's really clear that you want to share culture more. So let's do that. Enhance the Department of Happening by encouraging more members to deliver musical activities. We're definitely going to need musical members to come forward to deliver this because you really do not want to hear Ellie or I stand up and give you musical interludes. But it's something that people clearly want people who have those skills to share. So we're going to be encouraging you to do that as a priority. Enhancing the Department of Working by further developing our networking activities and developing a reciprocal mentorship program. So we got networking up and off the ground. So John and I started Fresh Start Fridays. Elle's got Fuse going. And what was great with Citizen Studio is people definitely want some mechanism for reciprocal mentorship to happen. So that creates an objective for us in terms of what we do next. And there's a big question around networking. There's a piece of research to do because there's loads of networking going on out there. What's our USP? So there are some ideas that bubbled up from Citizen Studio around things about people in a mid-career area and people who want to be able to see things in a more holistic way as opposed to just a direct linear career path. That seems to be there. Now we've got to figure out how to shape it and how to market it to bring more people into it. And then enhancing the Department of Working and Sharing with more activities targeted to reduce the cost of living and encouraging members who are freelancers to use other members who are freelancers first before going beyond Together Culture to find people to partner with and collaborate with to do work. So how can we create the mechanisms to make that easier to do? That all came out. So I'm lumping this into departmental expansion priorities. So each and every year in the autumn, we start doing our planning for what our priorities for the development of the departments are going to be in the next year. We've got a future backwards. We've got outcomes and personas that people who participated in Business Unusual Accelerator last year helped to develop. And this helps to put some meat on the bones of how we're going to get there. So the actions for this actually sit with the directors of the different departments, as supported by the community development team. And so this is what you'll start to see. You'll start to be invited to some roundtable events and things like that to go down to the next level to develop the bones of all of this. And then State of Together Culture happens in January every year, right? So you'll hear more from us in terms of what the priorities are and what's going to be new in the different departments because of what you said in Citizen Studio this year. So that's step one. I'm seeing a lot of nodding. Does that feel, yeah? Okay, clear, okay. And then there were some more strategic things that I've put in a category that's like, that's great. We're just not ready to do that yet. Either our own capacity or the wider environment in which we're operating in, because to do it well, we can't just move ahead. We need different actors to also prioritize it in the outside world. So the two major things that came out of that were a lot of people wanted us to be developing relationships with the life sciences businesses that are going to be moving into this neighborhood and figuring out how those life sciences businesses can help us in terms of creating learning and career opportunities and more meaningful work. Fantastic, fantastic. The program for the whole building and redevelopment happening, given the whole macroeconomy, has just suddenly become, it's going to take that many more years to do, right? Even the cost of materials and everything has gone up. So they've had to rework their entire program. So not the entire program, but in terms of the deliverable dates, it's not going to be happening as fast as we thought it was going to be happening. So we're years away from knowing who the businesses are who are actually going to be occupying these buildings. That's very far away. So it's on the list. We're just not there yet. We need to keep on going with working with the property developers, working with the city, working with Innovate Cambridge to understand the landscape, right? And so we're part of those conversations. And then the next thing, I was so delighted to see this. And I was because it is really, really close to my heart. And this is just, it's a personal passion. But a lot of people were talking about universal basic income. And there were several different data points about UBI. So there was something in the data about, could we undertake a longitudinal universal basic income case study amongst the membership of Together Culture? And that's always been the point, because obviously as we scale, the idea was, how are we creating meaningful work and using the excess, surplus membership fees to put other Together Culture members into work, or creating participatory budget processes. So if people need some extra money to be able to undertake an active citizenship passion project and they need some support for 5 months, they just come to Together Culture and the community development team facilitates it. It all becomes part of this annual process. So I couldn't be more there. Super excited to see it. I reference our theory of change to say, always been part of the plan. Really good to know that there's motivation amongst the membership to see how we can scale that. So that's on the docket. And the members of the non-executive director team who are here, that is one for us to try to figure out in terms of how it fits into the bigger strategy and how we make sure that we're not doing this in too small of a way. How is this noticed, and how can this be a really important case study that we are developing to encourage other actors to say, if you can deliver these outcomes, we're interested in helping you scale. Yeah? So it was really exciting to see that come out. If anybody else has a concept of this idea of universal basic income. All right. So the specific thing that we're going to throw into the incubator. So what I just wanted to map out and to make sure that we were completely clear on. So the annual accelerator is like the thing that we're going to move forward right now. And so last year, there was the Kite Heritage Project, and it was also how do we figure out the framework of a department store of regeneration. And that's what we've been doing, right? And then we've been bringing to life this year. So the purpose of the accelerator, you've got to think of Citizen Studio and the accelerator as two parts of an incubator, right? So it's the second phase of the process. Takes the priorities that came out, shapes it into a prototype thing. As we do it, it's meant to be deepening the capacity of members to be entrepreneurial, to be transformatively entrepreneurial in a regenerative way. And it deepens the ability of all of us because it exists to deliver on Together Culture's mission. The approach, how we actually do it, it should be learning by doing, right? It's not just sitting around and talking, but we're figuring stuff out and we're developing new skills and new relationships as we go. We're bringing together a group of people in the accelerator that are learning from one another and sharing skills. And remember last year when we ran Business Unusual just as sort of a systems change entrepreneurial toolkit? People remember Business Unusual? Yeah? Okay, I'm getting a lot of yeses. And if you don't remember it, it was a 6-part course that kind of taught the entrepreneurial toolkit, but how do you do it if you want to transform how business works? So how do you blend systems change with entrepreneurialism? So this year what we're doing is we're taking that, because we created it, and the accelerator, and we're merging it into one. So if you didn't do Business Unusual, and you want to do Business Unusual, then sign up to participate in the accelerator, because what you're getting is the active challenge set up by your fellow members and the education, the learning opportunity at the same time, and your commitment, your opportunity to contribute is to take what came out of Citizen Studio to learn and to figure out how we're going to put it into action for everybody else. And obviously the accelerator is supposed to be shaping. I think I've pretty much said this already. But shaping the thing that we're going to do, that was the point of what I wanted to say. That's why I put this here. So it was, how did we get to this thing that I'm just about to tell you? Elle was helping you to understand it. So it was the ideation at Citizen Studio, then the data analysis team, then the facilitators shared their viewpoints on the data and the ideas that were emerging. And then we took it to the community development team. And they're the stress testers who helped to interpret this. And I will tell you, we were going in one direction, and then we took it to the community development team, and we ended up going in a slightly different direction. So it really did meander, and it was shaped in participation with altogether, that's about 70 members. And here we are. So I'm going to skip over that slide because it's going on for a while. So this is it. This is what came out. So business to business. People want to figure out how we can take what we're doing at Together Culture and bring it outside of Together Culture to help other businesses operate in similar ways. So how can we run business-to-business introductory workshops so people can build Together Culture style environments in their own workplaces? So the challenge for the accelerator is to develop a business model for skills and culture change workshops that help other organizations build Together Culture and a meaningful work environment in their workplace. So how do we become so expert at this? How do we embody this so completely that we become the trainers for others? This might look like, and this doesn't mean it's what it's going to be, it's to give you a sense of what it might look like. It might look like adapting Together Culture tools like Living the Living Book workshops. Customized co-creations based around a specific need an organization has. developing living books themselves, cultural codes, and how you put them into practice for other organizations in the form of one-off team days or a series of co-creations customized to the needs of businesses in Cambridge. That was specific. It might go beyond that, who knows, right? It might be businesses in the Kite. It might be Anglia Ruskin University, I don't know. And what it needs to do is train and employ Together Culture members to not only deliver the products, but to develop the pipeline of prospective clients. So effectively, how do we run a small business line together? That's the challenge that emerged. So, if you are interested in becoming part of that accelerator team, the Business Unusual Incubator process is going to run across the rest of the year. Initially, it was just going to be the summer, but when we sat down and we figured it out, it was not going to get done over the course of the summer. We needed some more space and time. So basically, the accelerator team will meet once a month for different steps of the process. So it starts with market need assumptions and learning processes for how to do that and assess it, and then developing our market research framework. In between, people will do some private work or work with others when we're not meeting, so that we come back in August and we do an organizational analysis. So once we have a sense of what we think the outside world might want, what are the goods that we have? What are the resources that we have that could help to address that? And what's missing, right? Where are the gaps? So that will help us to identify our resources, our gaps, and identify anything that we think is unique, our unique selling point. Then we'll go off and we'll explore that a bit. And we will come back and then in September do a competitive analysis. So we'll figure out what we got right and what we just absolutely, nope, that's nice thinking, but nobody wants that, nobody needs that, or somebody else is doing it already, right? So we'll be doing a little bit more design thinking to develop the product, and we'll also be identifying we'll have identified the change that we want to see. So figuring out a little bit more what our USP is going to be. And then we're going to develop our research pipeline. So what are the tools that we want to create and who do we want to talk to out there, people who are prospective clients, so that we can shape this a bit more. When we've got that information, in October, we'll come together and we'll create a business model, which is basically a bit more product shaping, but how we would put this into action over time. And then we'll do an implementation plan. So basically, we'll make our recommendation to all of the membership to say, this is how we've stepped up to the challenge. This is the research that we've done. This is the new product that we think we can develop, and this is how we think we can deliver it and what it's going to do for us in terms of opportunities for members, in terms of Together Culture's mission, and this is how we suggest we start putting it into practice. It will go back to that community development team for stress testing, and then it goes to the membership as a whole in late November. So, if you want to be a part of the team, talk to me over pizza, or send me an email. We are looking for 4 to 6 people to participate. So between 4 and 6 human beings to participate. Really want people to have a sincere interest in developing entrepreneurial skills. If you're not interested in entrepreneurial skills, this isn't really for you. It really is. There are other opportunities where you can learn about business modeling, and that will continue to exist. But if you want to deep dive, we really want people who are super interested and are willing to make a commitment over the course of the rest of the year. So it means signing up to participate in every single workshop. And it probably means around 3 or 4 hours of work independently outside of the workshop each month. And definitively do not commit to this now because life, but prospectively, you might be able to see yourself actually delivering this work. You might see yourself moving beyond the business modeling shaping and actually being employed by Together Culture and growing this business line into the future. And where am I at? So Mark and I are going to be facilitating the process. Chris Poynton and Ladu, I know, yay, and Chris are your advisors on the community development team, who both have a lot of experience in developing and shaping businesses and product lines and addressing client-based needs as well. And the non-executive board will also be offering some support, and I need to shape that with them because I haven't asked them yet. So they'll prospectively be doing that. And so the last thing, if you want to get involved, and I think everybody does have my email. And again, we're going to send all of this out to everybody in email tomorrow. But I'm Heather at togetherculture.com, and I would ask for people to get in touch with me by the 9th of June to say that they're interested. And we're not interviewing people per se. We're trying to pull together a great group of folks who are super committed to doing this. But what would be really helpful to know is why. So all I really want to know in an email, and do it however you want to do it, even if it's a video, I'm not fussed. If you want to drop me a WhatsApp voice memo, great. If you want to write me a long love letter, that would be lovely. Wouldn't it be nice to get one of those? But just explain why you're interested and why we think your skills, and you know, we think about that really broadly. We started this with the number one skill for being a citizen being love and the ability to give, right? So please don't think I'm looking for you to tell me that you have an MBA, even though that would be useful. But we're looking for a blend of skills. So just explain to me why you think your skills and your background would be really helpful for this project, and why you would be a great fit for the team, why you like working with a team. That's all we want to know. And we'll put our Business Unusual Accelerator team together, and we'll see what happens over the course of the next 6 months. Anybody have any burning questions? It's a lot to absorb.
Not a question, but I sing with my mum in the choir. We've recently done a concert.
Oh.
So
Music Man.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can sing, but
You can sing.
I can sing
That's
and play
exciting.
guitar and a keyboard as well.
Fantastic. So fabulous. There is going to be, so thank you so much for volunteering. And you named it, all of those things about expanding the framework of what we've got now. You're also going to be getting lots of asks to come forward. So I think it's really helpful to know a whole bunch of members want music stuff. Great. And then it's awesome. So you know that that's a skill that people want people to share, and we are now going to try to figure out how we make that happen. So thank you.
There's one other member who's not, I don't think he's there at the moment, but also does music production stuff.
Amazing. That's great. I'm assuming that there are a lot of music people, because I'm assuming the idea maybe started coming from them as well, like in Citizen Studio. So let's make that happen. All right, there's one more person to hear from, or two more people to hear from, and that is Ellie Breeze and Haley Bell.
Right, so welcome everyone. I'm really pleased to be sharing with you this evening about the Together Culture Share Bank. This is new to Together Culture, coming from the Department of Sharing. Earlier in the year at the State of Together Culture, Lucy Gonzalez and I announced that this would be coming, so I guess here it is. The Together Culture Share Bank will be a way to share your time, skills, and experience with other members of Together Culture. So just an example, maybe you absolutely hate having to mow your lawn, but you might want to swap for a nice, delicious cake instead with someone else that's happy to help with you. So it's all about that exchange and sharing. Thank you. So then how will it work? Starting off with time equals time. So for every hour of service you provide, you will earn 1 time credit, which we're affectionately naming TOGs. You can then spend these credits by receiving services from other members. We will be keeping a track in a logbook, so all the exchanges will be recorded by the Department of Sharing with support from the membership helper team. And mutual respect. Every skill is equally valued. 1 hour of gardening is worth the same as 1 hour of tutoring.
Awesome. Yeah, so we've got a really exciting project to launch the Share Bank, and it's actually already in progress. If some of you are aware, we are expanding to a second site over on Burley Street. So the garden is in progress. Yvonne's got her team together, but it's not too late. So if you do want to start earning some togs, for every hour you share with renovating 56 Burley Street, you will get a tog.
So then looking beyond the launch, we're proposing the following way to earn togs via the Share Bank. So you would fill out the Share Bank registration form. This would be a Google form via Slack, perhaps listing the skills or services you can offer. And this can be any service within our guidelines, which will be coming out shortly. Then whenever a member expresses interest in your service, you can agree the details. You can agree them via email, via chatting in person at Together Culture, really whatever works for you and the other person. You'll also agree sort of some of the details within that, you know, how long is it going to take, when is it going to happen. And then lastly, once the exchange is taking place, getting back in touch to let us know that that's happened, some of the details, so we can keep a really good record on all the amazing exchanges taking place.
Perfect. Great. And then in terms of spending togs, so we're going to have a tog book, I'm thinking of calling it. We have thrown away around some ideas, but yeah, so it will be a PDF, so you can get it online via the Slack. You can email sharing@togetherculture.com if you're not on the Slack and you want access to any of these materials, or we can add you to the channel. We'll also keep a printed copy at the front desk so that you can have a little browse. Once you see something that you would like to spend a tog on, then you can just reach out directly to the member, and the member delivering the service will be recording the exchange through a Google form, and that's how we keep track of all the togs and all the wonderful hours shared with each other.
So we were just going to share some key dates that are coming up. So as Ellie mentioned, the Share Bank pilot is running with the development of the garden over at number 56 Burley Street. And then on the 23rd of June, the Share Bank will officially launch, and you'll be able to list your services and start earning and spending togs. So like Ellie said, if you want to get in touch, email sharing@togetherculture.com or come and have a chat with me. I'll be around over dinner. And then based on how the pilot runs and feedback from those involved, we may look to make some changes to make sure it's better, to make sure it's still working for everyone. And then lastly, I just also want to acknowledge the work that's been going on behind the scenes with the Share Bank and where it is today. And a big thanks to Lucy Gonzalez for all her preparation work, and also to Rebecca Hall for getting everything up to speed and ready for the launch.
Oh, thank you. Hello. If anybody joined online since before, then I'm Elle, and I'm a member of the community development team, and we've been hosting this evening, and it's been amazing. I'm so excited about the Share Bank, sorry. Oh, I feel exhausted, sorry. I feel like we're all looking forward to pizza, but I'm not going to hold you for much longer. But I just wanted to share a little bit of my story at Together Culture. So in March 2024, down the road, the first Together Culture event that I ever went to, apart from the lunch and learn, when it was the day that I joined, was an eco-emotion workshop, which was Pauline and Roberta, yeah. And that was just two members turning up, using the space and sharing skills that they had already, which is amazing. And then the next one that I went to was the Citizen Studio, run by Mark in April. So yeah, then a year later this year, I was actually running the Citizen Studio. So it's what a difference a year makes. So yeah, Together Culture has given me facilitation training and given me paid work, and it was sort of really meaningful work that I wanted to turn up for. And actually now I've also been starting to help with the Living Book sessions, and I'll be helping with them. And a plug for the Living Book sessions, I don't know if you haven't been, please join, because they're not just about like making butter or doing a collage. Like they're about living our values, so turning up, collaborating, experimenting and helping others. Like they're about those values that like are essentially really important in shaping our community, and every single member is really important in creating the kind of community that we want, and the kind of organisation that you want to be part of, right? Like everybody is really important, and we have this space as well. So I also would encourage you to think about doing something, like using the space. You might be thinking like, you know, I don't have any skills, or don't have any skills, that's an extreme thing to say, but like I haven't got any experience, or you know, I'm not sure what to do, or I kind of like feel nervous, but there's lots of different things here to help you. So there's facilitation training, which is free. There's Roberta's wellbeing coaching, and there's also one-to-one potential support if you wanted with kind of thinking about putting on an event. There are events about putting on events, regular events, and like all of that's free. And also, you know, you might just be sort of wanting to do something with someone. Like you don't need to, you know or have done it or whatever. You just need curiosity and a willingness. And community development team members as well, you can ask us if you're thinking about something, or Ellie. I mean, there's lots and lots of people, so you wouldn't be alone. But it is about being active, and you know, it's really important to join those Living Book workshops, to think about how you can contribute, because it's a symbiotic thing, right? Like I've benefited professionally and personally by doing the training and delivering facilitation sessions, but I've also given to the community. So it's like a two-way street. Like anyone knows Working Girl? That's not, anyway, it's not the best two-way street quote though, is it? Because in that two-way street, anyway. It's a symbiotic, this is not Working Girl. It's symbiotic, and yeah, I think that's most of what I wanted to say, really. Yeah, thank you, and enjoy the pizza.
There's nothing really left to say, except thank you to everybody for making Together culture. You are together people, which in Latin, you speak Latin, that means that you're a citizen. And every single moment that you turn up and you're just here, you're sharing the most important thing, which is yourself. And do not underestimate the power of it. Just don't. It's making a difference, and people can feel the energy out there. I promise you, because I'm going out there and I'm hearing about it all the time. So thank you, and I hope Together Culture has been meaningful to you. And now I think it's time to eat pizza, if you are here. So thank you, please do that.